Batting cleanup at a conference this stimulating is often difficult, and I want to thank you all for being diehards and sticking around. The title is called The Double Helix, and one of the metaphors that we use at HealthMedia and that we use at Johnson & Johnson is this notion of two strands. One is the social context, and the other is the individual context. And the base pairs really being those touch points. And what I want to talk a little bit about is some of the work we've done combining behavioral science and marketing research to develop a deeper understanding of the individual, their values, and how to communicate with them. Let's see. Oops. How do you get this thing to... All right, well, all right. What I want to begin with, though, is a little bit of good news and talk about this notion of sustainability, one of the themes of the conference, and to present to you what I think is very unique data, 8 years' worth of data on a wellness and disease prevention program. This program is called HealthPass, and it has a variety of components, including a recruitment strategy, health risk assessment, confirmed biomedical screening, individual counseling as needed, digital health coaching. This is the same kinds of digital health coaching that Vic talked about in his address. Referrals where necessary to additional resources, communications with continuity of care, educational information, and integrated into the primary care environment. We've had the luxury of getting 8 years of claims data coupled with health risk data through both the digital health coaching programs and the health risk assessment. And this is an ROI analysis over the course of those 8 years. And what you can see here is a positive ROI for the entire length of the program. This ROI also happens to be a very heavily, what I call a fully burdened ROI, so that the costs of the program include salaries, benefits, telephones, stamps, equipment, depreciation, excise taxes, the whole works. And this, to my knowledge, is the most longitudinal evidence that economically sustainable wellness can work. What's also interesting is if you look at the stickiness of the program, the number of years that individuals participated in the HealthPass program, you see a very direct dose-response relationship. So the more someone participates year over year in the HealthPass program, the lower their annual costs were in 2009. This is evidence of economic sustainability. Economic sustainability, frankly, is actually fairly easy to achieve. Oftentimes, by increasing people's copays, their deductibles, you can reduce costs. The problem with that is it's often at a cost to the actual health and risk profiles of that same population. So what about the risk profiles of these same individuals? The next few slides are a little difficult to understand at first, but what you have in that top line is at baseline the individuals who were outside of guidelines for total cholesterol. The lower line represents those individuals who were inside of guidelines at baseline. And at each point subsequent to that, you see the number of individuals in that top line who were brought inside of guidelines and remained inside of guidelines year over year for the course of the study. And subsequently, the other individuals who fell outside of guidelines during the course of that study. And you can see that the lines are not parallel, that there is not a one-to-one replacement, so that the program actually brought a significantly higher proportion of individuals inside of guidelines with regards to the biometric of total cholesterol. You can also see this with the stress frequency score. Same group of individuals, same kind of approach, inside of guidelines versus outside of guidelines. So a biometric, an emotional behavioral change, and then lastly, this is BMI. And of course, you don't see quite the dramatic effect with BMI. BMI and changing weight loss is a far more complicated series of behaviors, so you don't get quite the same impact on weight loss that you do in the other metrics, and we have a whole variety of others that I could show you, but basically these relationships hold up for HDL, LDL, physical activity, depression, et cetera, fasting blood glucose. So the basic message I want to give to you here today is that at the population level, in a large cohort of individuals, we can affect change and we can maintain that over time. Michael asked me to talk a little bit about what we think is what are the primary mechanisms of change in this. And when you have a multi-component program like this, you often run into what's called the black box problem, so that there are many components and teasing out what components are contributing is a little bit difficult. I can tell you that in terms of pure exposure, because of the scalability of the digital health coaching, the vast majority of these people took advantage of and were exposed to that component of the program relative to others, but it would still be a little bit of a leap of faith to say that that is the causal mechanism. And to really tease out those various components, you need to engage in things like dismantling studies, so you're able to isolate the kinds of impact that each component is having. So that's the good news. The other piece that I wanted to talk to you about is actually a reiteration of many of the themes that you've heard today, which is the notion of this double helix. You must address individuals at the social contextual level as well as the individual level. Individuals change and are influenced by the context around them. And in this case, what we're interested in is the employer context, the work environment, because we believe that that is an opportunity to really leverage the influence and the time that is spent in the workplace. So what we did at first was to take a very comprehensive look in a large sample of employed individuals to ask them what they felt about the kinds of health and wellness offerings that were available to them through their employer. What we were able to do is to determine that there were approximately 6 levels of wellness offering involved in these various employees, ranging from not visible at all, almost no health or wellness offerings that were discernible by the employee, all the way to very integral, part of the mission, part of the culture. And you can see the percentage breakdown in the sample. What's interesting is that if you look at how the various rankings of wellness integration related to the confidence and motivation of those employees to work on a health-related goal, you see almost a tipping point at those upper 2 levels. The 5s and 6s really start to show an increase in the employees' willingness to develop a goal, their confidence in their ability to achieve that goal, and their motivation to work on that goal. Here what you see is the employees' beliefs about the wellness and their impressions of the employees or employer themselves. So again, what you see is at those upper levels, the culture of health that are 5s and 6s, you really start to see the employees start to feel grateful and have loyalty to their employer for having put those wellness programs in place. If they're not visible or they're only weakly visible, you see actually a lot of skepticism. So it appears that doing a half-hearted job actually could be detrimental. If you're going to do it, you have to do it all the way. You do have to make it an integral part of the organizational structure, its mission, and its values. Otherwise, you may actually be doing more harm than good. So we also started to look at what is it that the individuals want from those kinds of programs. What is it that will engage them, and what do the structures, resources, services need to look like? We're also, and Vic mentioned this earlier, we're very interested in the values that people bring to their health and wellness. And we ask in our health programming, what values are most important to you? And here you can see how those values play out with regards to how people manage their lives, how they motivate certain kinds of behavior. What's interesting here is that values don't exist in isolation. So using structural equation modeling, we began to look at how do these values hang together. And while this is a complicated slide, what you'll see here are two specific triangles. The first is the most definitive, and the strength of the relationships is based on the thickness of the lines. So one sense of core values that hangs together are being a parent, a spouse, and being responsible. So we're beginning to see how values hang together and how we can message individuals to say maintaining your health is important to your role as a parent, a spouse, and to that value of being responsible, and particularly responsible to those roles. The other one that's not quite as clear to see, but is interesting in and of itself, is the triad of independent, control, and energetic. And again, what you see is an opportunity to start tying people's values to health, because, and it's been a theme through many of the discussions today, without looking at those superordinate goals, those values, and tying health to those values, you really don't get a good sense of how somebody's going to not only start to participate, but to maintain and sustain that change over time. Taking that data and a slightly different look at it, and plotting values against motivation and confidence, which we think are the sort of metacognitive constructs that really motivate or produce behavior change. Individuals who did not endorse any values, you'll see, have lower motivation and lower confidence. And then those who endorse some values cluster higher up. When you explode that cluster, again, you begin to see this notion of individuality, control, and dependence forming a cluster, and this notion of being responsible, a parent, a grandparent even, in another cluster. And this is just the beginning of our research. We're starting to expand on this notion of values and mission, and as you heard Vic talk about, what are the kinds of things that are creating that aha moment? And if you can tap into the values of those individuals, you can begin to deal with that defensiveness and tie this to that notion of something higher than oneself, that notion of transcendence, that notion of purpose and meaning. One of the things that Johnson & Johnson does very well is market research, and one of the things that HealthMedia does very well is behavioral science. What we're beginning to do now is to take techniques from market research, which is also behavioral science, by the way, and really start to look at how those techniques can help inform our messaging with regards to what people want and how they want it delivered. So I think that even the last speakers mentioned that the technology serves a purpose in reaching out to individuals. It gives us greater touch points. So going back to that double helix, there are more base pairs that we can create. But what's critical is you have to put content into that technology that's appealing, compelling, meaningful, and motivating. What we've been able to do with regards to what do people want and how do they approach their health is to identify 6 segments. And for those of you who have seen a lot of market research, this will look somewhat familiar. And without going into too much detail, you have what are called the booster clubbers. They are very interested in social interactions. Permission seekers, those that want to change but feel like they're in a context where changing their behavior or initiating a health-related regimen is not going to be supported by the social context. Insecure rookies don't know where to begin. They're interested as well, but they don't know where to begin or what to start with. Energized champions are the easy ones. They know what to do, and they're already doing it. Free agents are interested in health change, but they don't believe that their employers or social institutions should really be a part of that. That's an individual choice. They work out individually. They manage their health individually. And lastly, the forced forfeiters, those who give up their own health because they're often too busy taking care of others. When you look at these segments, what you see are interesting patterns with regards to their self-perception of their well-being. The patterns look similar by segment, but the elevations are different. And again, you'll see that physical health is the area where most people feel unhappy. They feel most in need of help. When you look at the group in terms of their energy throughout the day, again, you see a very similar pattern, but you also see that a certain segment, in this case the insecure rookies, really struggling with their energy relative to the other segments. We find also, by the way, we're starting to message our end users that it's not about managing time, because time is finite. It's about managing energy, getting more done in the time that you have allowed, and learning how to pace yourself differently. Take breaks. Use small bouts of energy, micro bouts of energy, to revigorate the self throughout the day. And again, what we see is a high motivation segment: the booster clubbers, the permission seekers, and the energized champions, very motivated to change their health. And then the other segments, the insecure rookies, the free agents, and the forced forfeiters, having less motivation. And people have talked about motivation and confidence here today, but one of the things that is important to recognize is that if you have individuals who are low in motivation and low in confidence, you have to begin with motivation. Confidence comes through action and the results of that action. If you can't get someone motivated, you're never going to build their confidence, because they're never going to have success experiences upon which to build that confidence. So messaging begins with confidence. Social connections. Again, what you see are that the segments have differential interactions with their social networks. This is important for us to know. Some of them may be more isolated because of social skills deficits. Some of them may simply be less interested in social connections. Again, the free agents are not that interested in team-based or social interactions around health. They may prefer to function in isolation. So again, we're beginning to figure out, how do we message these segments in order to provide a compelling message that's unique to them, tailored to them, that will begin with motivation and then end with building their confidence. And so this is a summary of some of the things one might do with each of those segments. So the booster clubbers, you want to facilitate those social connections. With the permission seekers, you need within the organizations that they're functioning in their social structures, make sure that they are given permission to take time to manage their health. Insecure rookies may need some educational materials. Energized champions, simply provide them with further resources, health clubs, books, gyms, etc. Tools for the free agents, give them things that can help them function independently around their health. And then lastly, the forced forfeiters. In some cases, you may want to teach them or also enlighten them that the sacrifices they make to take care of others actually may undermine that role if they're not taking better care of themselves. So the key point is that individuals have different needs, wants, desires, aspirations, and we have to meet them where they're at. We have to have a better understanding of where they're at in order to provide them with the key content independent of the technological channel we're providing it through, in order to really engage them, to get them to attend to that information, remember that information, act on that information, and sustain behavior, build habits over time. So lastly, I'll finish up with, we really do, in our organization, believe in this double helix. We believe that we need to look at the social context, whether it's the employer level, the community level, the national level. We need to build more base pairs so that the organizational level is contacting more frequently and more positively with the individual. We do believe that changing behavior on a large scale is an imperative to success. We don't believe that cultural change is going to come from the traditional medical establishment. It's been said several times here, they're good at what they do. That is acute care, but the solutions have to come from a broader network of individuals, multidisciplinary, behavioral sciences, technical sciences, medical sciences, social sciences, and obviously the political sciences at some point have to come into play. And that the effective solutions will have to combine a deep understanding of human nature that leverages technology so that we can reach out to those individuals in the situations in which they're confronting their challenges, their barriers, and their temptations. So with that, I will end the day, I think. Great conference.
So for Steve, for Holly, for Tracy, for Karen, I think Tom's gone, Mark, if there are any questions that you've been holding or have an interest in asking, there's...
I'm interested in how much the monitoring for seniors costs. I've heard about it in the past. I've heard about the monitoring for seniors, and what I've heard about it in the past, that it's very expensive. It's being added to some assisted living places, but the cost is just huge.
You know, there's a variety of implementations. That's such an important issue because, you know, our whole premise is we have to work on sustainable and scalable solutions that are low cost. And some of the, which is why we're really focusing on low cost sensors in our applications. However, there are some commercial safety systems for monitoring and some in nursing homes that are used, and there's a wide variety. Some of the expense that I find most concerning comes from the false alarms. When you know, most of the fallen I can't get up kinds of things that don't want to name names of a variety of companies because this is in its infancy. But we are in a financial crisis right now, and we can't have solutions that are going to add to the cost that way. So what's your comment?
So the work you're doing right now, that's like a study?
Yes.
And this is not over yet. This is the next generation of this kind of
Yes.
service?
Yes. I was talking about a research study in Oregon Health Science University.
I might just comment on what we're doing. Our platform, which I didn't speak about technology, is connected bidirectionally to Microsoft Health Vault, and therefore a huge number of sensors, if you will, you can buy and plug in, and then the rules engine on our end of it actually monitors those results and then can message anyone on the planet who has a SMS or email, and then mothers or care managers can have a dashboard where they're seeing all these things as they show up. So, I mean, I'm always looking for sort of a generic, cheap way to get things done where everyone can plug into the ecosystem without a lot of cost.
Anything else? Great. Well, I want to applaud everyone that's still here. I also want to applaud the speakers. And if maybe you'll humor me for 30 more seconds. So if one or two or three of you would just shout out a word that describes how you're feeling right now. Is there one word that you can just say about how you felt about the day, how the day went? Are you exhausted, elated, confused, empowered? Inspired? Fascinated?
I'm both, if I could be, I'm both mentally energized and feeling exhausted.
Okay.
Also hold that whole thing.
It's like that good stress and bad stress. It's encouraged. Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on behalf of Max and myself and Health Interventions. Really appreciate you spending the day with us, and hopefully it was a valuable experience, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.